Yesterday when we were talking, you had made some comments about how the seeds of the current situation were sown and announced decades ago, about the WTO and how when the NAFTA and GATT agreements went in, it was obvious that some of the changes we're now experiencing would have to happen in order for those agreements to be implemented, about how 9/11 and the Trade Center destruction fits into that, and I was just wondering if you could sort of recap some of that here on camera.
Well, I think that the American people better prepare themselves for a new reality. Because, you know, it's like people are outraged over the way, I mean, either people are totally supportive of the way the government's behaving with its war-making policies, or they're outraged over it. And the ones that are for it, well, they're just for it. The ones that are outraged seem to be surprised. And that surprise seems to be a part of the outrage. And what I think is, you know, that people just better get used to what's coming. Because my own personal opinion is that America is as close to Nazi Germany as close can get. If one understands the mechanisms of what happened in Nazi Germany. I mean, you know, this is something that was lifted straight out of there. Hitler and his propaganda people, they made a conscious decision that to tell outrageous lies to the public, because they will accept an outrageous lie before they'll accept a subtle lie. And the more outrageous you make it, the more they'll accept it if you just program it correctly. You know, which I find interesting. This gets into a long answer. I think we're in the 1,000-year Reich. I think that thing is for real. I think that in World War II, see, I look at it that on this planet there's an industrial Reich, and its bureaucracy is the corporate Nazi, and they create a class of ethnic rich. And this 1,000-year Reich thing is very important to them, because that industrial ruling class that's on this planet, see, everything in the end runs through them. All development and progress. And anyway, this industrial Reich, they created a nationalistic Nazi to have World War II, Germany. And they created a nationalistic Nazi to sacrifice for the good of the global Nazi. Because creating the nationalistic Nazi, because to remember, Hitler, after World War I, Germany had these heavy restitution charges laid upon, reparations things laid upon them, outrageous reparations things. And then the value of the gold was shifted and changed, so that made the reparations even more after World War I. But yet, between World War I and World War II, Germany had enough money to build this incredible, massive killing machine. They had to get that money from somewhere. Somebody had to underwrite all of that, because they were under these heavy debts. So I think the nationalistic Nazi was created because with the creation of the nationalistic Nazi, they altered the economy of Europe. And again, it helped a discrepancy between the rich and the poor. It took them into the jet age, the age of antibiotics, the nuclear age. That war by itself just leapfrogged the Industrial Revolution by light years. I mean, it's so basic as, you know, because I use this word, because, you know, like all the stuff that Mengele did with his medical experiments, or all the stuff that the German scientists did. When the Americans won, the Americans incorporated them in took their knowledge, their views, all of their stuff, incorporated all the knowledge, everything they had learned, the Americans incorporated into their worldview. Somebody gave all these Nazi war criminals sanctuary on the Western Hemisphere in Central and South America. See, so something going on to help. So I think the Nazi thing is a very real thing. I think where we're at now in this 1,000-year Reich venture was that in the 80s, the General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs, which created the World Trade Organization. The General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs, which created the World Trade Organization, well, the GATT is made up of 180 nations or so. But one of the things about joining the General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs is that all the member nations have to agree that they will obey the decisions of the World Trade Organization. So if the World Trade Organization issues a ruling, then all the member nations have to agree to submit to it. Well, see, or another way, what you can say is, maybe in a more realistic way, is that the decision-making process of the World Trade Organization, all national sovereignties become subservient to this. National sovereignty becomes subservient to these economic decisions made by the World Trade Organization. And the way that that filters down, you know, I was wondering, well, how are the American people going to take this when they find out that they won't have the right to demonstrate anymore? How are they going to take it when they find out that they're going to have to take wage cuts, or that they're going to have to give up environmental protections because some organization is going to tell them that they have to? They're not going to accept this. The results of this. Because as an example, it's like, see, say some company, where are we at? In Chicago. So maybe some company in Illinois, because Illinois has strict environmental standards. So let's say there's some company in Illinois, and Illinois has these strict environmental standards, but there's a country in Bulgaria that has no environmental standards. So that company can make a lot of money because it doesn't have environmental standards. On a global level, the company in Chicago can't compete with the company in Bulgaria. So they appeal, so they take this case to the World Trade Organization. The World Trade Organization can then turn around and say to the company in Chicago, or say to the state of Illinois, that you have to alter your environmental standards. And the state of Illinois has to do it. Because of these other decisions that were made. Now, so I figured, well, most people are going to object to this, and they're going to rebel against it. And then, lo and behold, comes 911. They knock down those towers and attack the Pentagon building, and all of a sudden, you've got the USA Patriot Act, which makes it legal for the government to stop all dissent as it chooses to do so. All they got to do is call it a national security risk or a terrorist threat. And so someday some workers are going to want to go on strike for a better wage, and they're going to be called economic terrorists because they're threatening the economic stability of the corporation or whatever. Or people are going to try to protect their environment, and they'll be called terrorists for it. And all the laws, through the Super Patriot Act, all the things are set in motion which makes it legal for the government to do this. See, all this is coming. All of this is coming. I'm telling you. You know, it's like they're going back to the Dark Ages. You know, the Dark Ages, the landlord, the royalty, the thief, the serf, the peasant. Going back to that. The disparity between the rich and the poor is getting larger and larger and larger. And as of the year 2000, there were close to 3 million people that were under some kind of custody, from being death row to wearing an electronic bracelet, or to just being on probation. By the year 2100, they expect that number to be 33 million people. One of the largest building industries taking place in this country now are prisons. Well, they're building, but yet crime, when you look at crime, even no matter how high it gets and how the crime rates go, see, there seems to be a fluctuation on crime, but they're anticipating a much larger prison population. So that means, I interpret that to mean there are new crimes coming. right? That haven't. There's going to be a new definition of crime. You know, it's a. And you look, like on this recent thing here, this war with Iraq, this attack against Iraq. You know, people speak out, they get shut down. If you get attacked, you get criticized, and that has the ripple down effect of making people on the street afraid to speak out. I mean, I'm telling you, if one read, there's a book called The Life of Adolf Hitler, written by a man named John Toland. Read that book. Because it explains the reality. I mean, who Hitler was and the society he was in and what created. Read it. I'm telling you, you know, it's it's very American. It truly is. So to me, it's the American people are in for a hard time. I mean, because the way everything's being globalized, the way everything's being globalized now, you know, I'm going to say this about the whites. See, what the white people of America don't understand is that, see, they were given certain privileges for a couple, 200 or 300 years because their owners, right, their elite needed them. They needed them to number one, conquer the land, conquer the people, conquer the land, and then attack the land, attack the resources of the land, turn it into material, and have a certain productivity. So they needed the white people to do this. So they had to give them certain privileges. But now it's all gone global. They don't need the white people to do this anymore. They don't need them the same way they needed them before. So they're going to take the privileges away now. I mean, it's happening. It's happening all over the place. The job, you know, this is connected to the World Trade Organization. This is connected to the GATT. All the companies that are moving out of the U.S. and they're going over where they can hire people to work for $6 a day instead of paying somebody $15 an hour here and give them health insurance. You know, the way this is all unfolding. So the white people in America are in for a big surprise. See, the majority of the blacks never got out of poverty, you know. The majority of the blacks never made it out. Majority of the Indians never made it out. Majority of the Hispanics never made it out. They just allow enough of a percentage of us to make the so-called middle class thing, you know, so you have a little makeup on. But the whites were allowed to make it out. Now they're going to get put back in. And when it happens to them, they're going to have a very violent, insane reaction to this. It's all in prisons they're building, and all these Super Patriot Act laws that they're passing now, the Sunset Law, all the stuff that they're passing now about the right to spy, the right to pick you up, to call you a terrorist. They don't even need to have, all they got to do is call you a terrorist. They don't have to show any proof. They just got to say it. Well, go read what the Inquisitions were. Do a study of what the Inquisitions were. It's the same thing. It's the very same thing. It just got a different shape. It's just dressed differently now. And the Inquisitions was about white people. We got our form of it later after the white people got here, but the Inquisitions really was about altering the perception of reality of the white people way back when all that stuff went on. If you want to know where you're headed as a society, understand the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages of Europe. And then just make this middle transference about, well, add neon to it. Right? Add neon to it, right? Add neon and rubber wheels and air conditioning to it, right? They're going back to that system. That's where it's headed in a major way. And the people of America, they just follow whatever promise they want to hear. They just follow whatever promise they want to hear. You know, and so they've got something coming that's they're not ready for. They're not psychologically ready for it. They're not mentally ready for it. But those who would oppress us, they never stop. They're relentless. They're building the prisons now to get ready for what we're not ready for. But you know, 30 million people by the year 2100, that'll probably be about 10% of the population. You know? And I heard this on the History Channel. So this isn't something I read in some extremist accusation thing. This is, pumped right out there to America.